Hi guys. This one, got another one cooking in my head, but I'll get that one out. Um, this one I wrote down when I was doing some soul searching when I was out of town, and I wanted to find the cross, but not in the obvious places like, yes, in the Gospels where, he was hung on a cross or hung on a tree. Something a little more subtle, but it was there. And so let's go to Luke 13:29. And it talks about, if you want to go back, um, that a few will be saved. And it says to strive through the narrow gate. And this is Matthew 13:24. And says, strive to enter through the narrow gate, for many, I say to you, will seek to enter, but not be able. When once the master of the house has risen up and shut the door, and you begin to stand outside and knock at the door and saying, Lord, Lord, open to us. And he'll say to you, I do not know you. Where are you from? Now that sounds a lot like Noah and the ark, right? I mean, Noah had 120 years, and he kept warning everybody. He's building this huge boat on dry land, and people are like, you're crazy, you're stupid, and they're drinking and marrying and carrying on, right? Until the Lord shut the door and saved 8 people. And everybody went, let us in. Well, this is the same thing right here, right? So what's the point of this? In Revelations talks about one of the churches and says that he's going to open a door and nobody can shut, and he's going to shut a door that nobody can open. Well, this applies as well. And so in Matthew 13:26 it says, then you will begin to say, we ate and drank in your presence, and you taught us in our streets. But he'll say to you, I tell you, I do not know you. And where you are from, depart from me, all you workers of iniquity. So this is kind of like the people that go to church and say they're religious and they do good works, but they have no faith or relationship with Jesus. He said, you tried to work your way into heaven, but I never knew you. We didn't have a relationship. And that's in 1 Kings 20, where Elijah goes into a cave, and he tells him to stay, wait and listen to a still small voice, And then the voice came and heard and told him what he needed to hear. So some people get into prayer closets, quiet time, listening to the voice of God. And he talks in many different ways, but you got to have your ears open. So the first miracle Jesus did, what? Changing water to wine? What was the first healing? He restored the guy's sight. The second healing after that restored his hearing. Okay, then he made the lame walk. If you look at that, there's a part in the Old Testament where it says, that he'll open the eyes of the blind, he'll let the deaf hear, and it's like, and change your heart from stone to flesh. Well, if he opens your eyes, you can see the truth. If you can hear, you could hear his voice. And then what? He heals the lame, so then you can walk. And what are we supposed to do? Walk in faith, not by sight. Oh, okay. Well, the blind man had to walk by faith because he couldn't see. Right? So little subtleties. But most people read this and they just glance over it because it's a story. Sure. Is there more to it? Does it go deeper? Yes. Do you have to take it in context and read the whole entire Bible? Yes. Okay. So we'll go on. On Luke 13:28, and there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth when you see Abraham and Isaac and Jacob and all the prophets in the kingdom and yourselves being thrust out. So they're going to see the heaven, paradise, which is Luke 16, I think. The rich man and Lazarus died, and there was a big chasm between the two, and he said, send somebody back, to warn my brothers. And what does Abraham say to the rich man? You had all your luxuries in life, and you wouldn't help this poor guy, Lazarus, a beggar. Now he's with me in paradise, and you're being tormented in hell. And he said, you have Moses and the prophets. If they won't listen to them, if I send somebody back from the dead, they wouldn't even believe him. Which Jesus was raised from the dead and rose again on the third day and preached to everybody for 40 days and then was ascended into heaven. They still don't believe. And that was in Luke, and that was a story about a rich man and a beggar. So here, and they will come, this is what I was getting to, Luke 13:29. And they will come from the east, right here, to the west, from the north, and to the south. Okay? You basically make the sign of a cross, but not the Catholic thing. That's an upside down cross, because they don't go all the way to the south. They stop here. So they do this, that, and that. Well, that's an upside down cross, and they, refer to Peter being crucified upside down. That's also satanic. This is equal parts. From the east to the west, to the north, to the south. Okay? That makes a cross. What's in the center? Well, the tabernacle, the Holy of Holies. So there's an example of the cross in the New Testament that's not actually saying, hey, this is the cross and Jesus was crucified on the cross. But it does make a cross. Or if you turn it sideways, an X. Where is it in the Old Testament? Because New Testament, Old Testament, they always kind of relate to each other, and everything happens twice. So then you go to Numbers. You go to Numbers 2, okay? And it talks about the camps being assembled around what's in the middle? The tabernacle. What's inside the tabernacle? The Holy of Holies. And what's in the tabernacle of the Holy of Holies? The Ark of the Covenant. And the Ten Commandments. And the mercy seat, where they pour the blood on for the forgiveness of sins. But in the Exodus, what they do, they put the blood of the lamb, an innocent lamb, on the doorposts, and the destroyer passed over them. That's why it's called Passover. So Jesus died on the cross, spread his blood. The blood was, what, in the center of the cross? Sure, because he was hanging right there. Did it end up falling through a crack in the ground during the earthquake? Did it fall on the mercy seat? Did he pay once and for all for the price of everybody's sins, past, present, and future? Was he made sin? Because it's like, Father, why have you forsaken me? Because he was made sin. And he took on sin to impute his righteousness and holiness onto us. We're sinners. We don't deserve it. So he took our place instead of. That is the most miraculous thing that ever happened. That Satan thought he was going to win by crucifying Jesus and killing the Messiah. But what he actually didn't know is that that was the ultimate sacrifice that paid for everybody's sin to go to heaven. Satan lost. And what happened? Well, that would be in Luke, I think 11. Jump down there really quick. All right. No, I can't find it. Silly me, I should have had it ready. maybe 13. Anyway, I'll come back to that. I want to go down to Numbers. Sorry, guys. So they set up the camps, and they broke them into 4 groups. And there was tribes in each group. There's 12 tribes. There's 4 corners of the earth. So there was a group that was established to the east. And they numbered 186,000 people, you know. I'm not including Levites, because they're not including this. They're holy and they're priests. So they counted all the men, and it was about 186,000. So we'll just say 180,000. And they camped to the east. And then there was another group that camped to the west, right? East to the west. And there were 180,000 of them. Then another group, about 157,000, we'll say at 150, to the north. Okay, so the east and the west and the north. And then there was a group, the last group, that was to the south. And they were about 151,000, or 150. So then, but it does it in the order of east to the west, to the north, to the south. And that's exactly how it describes it, of setting up the camp around the tabernacle. That was a tent, you know, and Jesus said, destroy this tent and I'll raise it in 3 days, you know. So our bodies are referred to as a tent or a vessel. And, you know, we are in a corruptible body or vessel or tent. We will put on an incorruptible vessel or glorified body. Right now we're in a fleshly body. There's a spiritual body. So what's born of flesh is flesh, what's born of the spirit is spirit. Okay, spirit body lives forever. Our fleshly body, you know, it says a generation is 70 years. If by strength, maybe 80. And also, in Noah, God said that man's number will be 120. Because Adam lived to almost 1,000 years old, or 900 years old. And so the genetics was changed. Something changed. And I have a feeling that, you know, Adam started out perfect. He walked and talked with God. God is holy. No sin can be around him. So then Adam was sinless. Well, then they were disobedient, and then sin crept in. And then what happened? I think over time, sin eats away perfection. So how can man get back to being perfect? Oh, we can't. So if you notice in the genealogies, they always go down and down and down in numbers in terms of the length of a lifespan. Till we get to Noah and God says, that's it, done, 120, right? But Noah was 600 years old. Well, how many jubilees? 50 jubilees at 120 is 6,000 years. So even Noah's life at 600 was kind of a clue that pretty soon, on May 14th, the end of the 70th year of Israel's, they start 71. It says a generation, 70 years. And all things will come to pass before the end of that generation. Does that mean everything's going to happen before May 14th? I don't know, but it could. So then we see in the Old Testament, they make camp from east to the west, to the north, to the south, with the tabernacle in the middle, which is kind of like, hey, that's where your heart is. See, God's laid this all out. This was centuries ago, alluding to, just like Abraham sacrificing Isaac, his only son. And then he turns around and looks, in the thicket there's a ram. Because why? Abraham told Isaac, when he goes, Isaac goes, where's the sacrifice? Dude, you're it. Get on the altar, you know. But he did, out of obedience, you know. And what did Abraham say? God will provide himself as a sacrifice, you know, and then the ram showed up. This is, of course, after the angel told him, stop, don't kill Isaac. You know, you've proven your faith, and your faith is accounted as righteousness. So, because he believed, because he was obedient, he was considered righteous. And did he have to go through with it? No. But it was proving character. Just like Job. Poor Job being suffered and tortured and just lost everything. Didn't give up his faith. He stuck to God and said, God gave it to me, God took it away. It's all his. So he has the right and authority to grant you blessings, curses. You know, he chastises you through fire or whatever. Why? To build character, to build your spirit, not to spoil you. But Abraham and Job were both very well off. They were rich. You know, did they do wise with the money that God gave them, or the camels and family and resources? Yes. Were they selfish and spoiled like the rich man and Lazarus and Luke? No. Because they knew that it was all coming from God, and they gave thanks, and whatever God wanted to do with it, it was up to him. It's his sovereign choice. Some vessels are made for mercy, others are made for destruction. Can the clay pot tell the potter what it should be? Nope. You can try, but it doesn't work that way. So, God has shown his story over and over in people's lives. People live this. Abraham lived that. He took his son up to Mount Moriah, Golgotha, and did an enactment of what was going to happen with God and his son happening on the cross. It was a foreshadowing. But this was an actual guy in his life that went up and did all this. These are not fairy tales like people think. Noah really did build the ark. They found it. It's on Mount Ararat. You know, the flood really happened. There's flood stories all through the world in cultures that could not, would not, and did not communicate. But yet they had the same stories. And things are starting to now come out. And the truth of everything. You know, we have video cameras that can capture infrared or ultraviolet. Well, ultraviolet is in the blue spectrum, and infrared is in the red spectrum. Okay, our eyes can't see very much. Our ears can't hear very much. We can hear 20 hertz or 20 cycles to 20,000 cycles. And a cycle is up and down, and then it starts again. That's the time frame, you know. And the higher the frequency, the quicker the wave goes. The lower the wave, the lower the frequency, the lower the wave goes, the slower it is. Okay? Blue is a very slow wave, and red is a very high wave. Okay? Cats and dogs can see these things. We can't. I think they can see the spirit world. I think they can sense it. Now, there are multiple dimensions. Yeah, they've proven it scientifically. And God says that he will pull back the veil and people will see the heavens roll back and the things they're going to see. Some people have been enlightened to be shown that there's planets out there. There's, you know, Jupiter does not follow its normal progression. And, you know, there talks about a red planet and the red dragon. I know the Hopis have a little legend that says there's a red Kachina star and a blue Kachina star. Well, I don't adhere to all the mythology because a lot of that gets twisted and turned around, but there's always a little bit of truth. So what if the red Kachina star is actually a red planet or a red star which, they have discovered that's out there, that's in the infrared spectrum. We can't see it. So if it's another spectrum of light, could it be in a different dimension? The red dimension. And is there a blue dimension? Because there's a blue Kachina star in their legends. Well, maybe there's a blue planet or a blue star. Think it's funny? Think it's weird? Yeah. There's also a black sun out there. And the Satanists worship that. And there's songs written about it. Black Hole Sun by Soundgarden. Is there things in the media that Lucifer shows? Superman. Let me see. He came from Krypton, and there was a red sun. And he was normal. But he comes to our planet, which is Latin for plane. Doesn't matter if it's flat or round, And then he gets these extraordinary strengths because he's by the yellow planet. And he can fly real fast. Oh, kind of like an eagle. And he can run real fast. And he doesn't get tired. Oh, wait a minute. That's in Ezekiel or Isaiah, right? That they'll fly like eagles. Yeah. And he has X-ray vision, and he has these red lasers just come out of his light. There's so many powers that he has, right? Jesus said that we will do greater things than he did. Well, he healed the blind. He healed the deaf. He made the lame walk. He raised somebody from the dead, Lazarus. He rose from the dead himself after 3 days. But we're supposed to do greater things than that. Okay? So, does it also say that, the demons are going to be let out of the pit and be here on earth? Yes. People think it's all, legends and fairy tales. Before Noah in the ancient days, there was giants. There's mighty men. The angels came down, the fallen ones, and took women and then had offspring. So their DNA was mixed. They had half human, half angels. And they were mighty men. They were tall, and the giants, and they had 6 fingers and 6 toes. There's skeletons out there. They're hiding them. The Indians have legends of giants. Whatever. The Bible says there was giants in that day and then afterwards. Is it all going to come full circle again? Yeah. Are we going to need God's protection? Absolutely. Are we going to need the Holy Spirit? You bet. If you think you can do this on your own, that's just like religion, and it won't work. What everybody needs is to get on their knees and pray for God's protection, His love, His kindness, His mercy, His grace, and seek Him daily. So Romans 12, to give your body as a living sacrifice is your reasonable service. So He gives you the Holy Spirit because you what? Because you believe, because you ask Him? It's His choice. Many are called, but few are chosen. Pray that you're one of the chosen. There's a wrath coming of God to punish all the evil people. So, do you want to be here for that? Because you don't want to believe? Well, I would choose God. Since He created everything, He made you, and He's given you a way to be with Him forever in happiness. So that's what I would do.